It's Sunday, which means no work officially, but unofficially, everything still needs doing. The animals don't understand the Sabbath. The fire doesn't take religious holidays. And your brother has already knocked over a bucket. So, crisis. But there's a softness to the day. She insists on perfection. Her standards are brutal for someone who still forgets where her shoes are. People move slower. Voices are quieter. Even the chickens seem contemplative, pecking the yard with a theological solemnity. You dress in your cleanest shirt, the one you wore to the wedding, and hoped never to wear again, and help your sister braid her hair. The trees overhead form a kind of canopy now, their leaves just starting to unfurl into the full arms of spring. The earth is still damp, but not hostile. Birds are already holding court in the branches, gossiping loudly about worms. The same words, the same gestures. Your hands know what to do. Your knees complain in the same places. Someone tells a joke about pigs. Someone else scolds a child for stepping in a puddle that was clearly meant for shoes. You try and fail to teach your brother how to properly crack an egg, which is unfortunate because half the village is nodding off, including the priest's own cousin. Church is half a mile away, and the path is familiar, even comforting. But the crust is golden and crisp, and the filling is rich and spiced, and for one moment the entire room is united in reverent chewing. Your mother begins a story one you've heard before, but pretend you haven't. Here's your historical gem. Attending church was legally required under Elizabethan law. Skipping could earn you a fine or worse suspicion. You suspect it was both, depending on the day, the weather, and the pie. The air is thick with damp wool, candle smoke, and the vague aroma of someone who keeps forgetting to bathe. Religion in Tudor England wasn't just a private matter. It was public performance. Attendance was surveillance. Your kneeling was being noted. You file into the church with the rest of the village, shoulder to shoulder, cloaks brushing. The service is in English now, not Latin. A small mercy, at least you can almost understand what's being said. The priest drones through familiar verses. His voice is flat and gray as the stone walls. You mouth along, though your thoughts drift toward the garden, toward your unfinished mending, toward the bread you're definitely going to eat the moment this is over. And yet, despite the tedium, there's comfort in the rhythm. Obscure cultural tidbit of the day. Some believe that if you fell asleep during the sermon, your soul might temporarily drift from your body and be vulnerable to demonic whispers. After the service, you linger outside with the others. Conversations bloom like clover, slow, unhurried, fragrant, with nothing in particular. The rest of the day unfolds like fabric. You help your mother sweep the stoop. You repair a broken stool leg again. Your eyes are closed, though your mind still drifts, slowly, gently. And for dinner, there's a meat pie, a real one, with actual meat. Your father traded something for it, what? No one says. Afterwards, your family gathers near the fire. The warmth pools around your feet, curls up your legs like a cat. Someone starts humming. You've danced and carried water and burned your tongue on stew. Historians still debate whether Tudor evenings were spent in storytelling or in exhausted silence. You lean your head on your arm. The room grows dim. Shadows stretch and yawn along the beams. Outside, the stars are returning. You've made it through another week. Let the mud dry. Let the firelight blur. And somehow that feels like everything. Wind down ending. The fire has died down, just embers glowing faintly like the memory of warmth. You lie on your straw mattress, blanket pulled up, one leg sticking out just enough to confuse the ghosts. You picture the path to the fields, quiet and empty under the moon. You remember the taste of barley stew, the smell of spring rain, the quiet dignity of a line of laundry in the wind. Somewhere a cow shifts in its sleep. A bird ruffles its feathers and tucks its head. You hear a breeze slip through the trees, moving soft and low like it knows a secret but won't tell. And everything in you settles. Not all at once, but in pieces, the way a loaf rises. The way sunlight moves across a stone. The way an old song fades, not with a stop, but with a sigh. You've walked through storms and fields, market stalls and dovecotes. And still you're here, whole, or close enough. You don't need to remember every detail. Let the names fade. Just know that you survived Tudor England, not with power or riches, but with stubbornness, salt, and a good pair of boots. Now all that's left is quiet, so breathe, sink deeper. The day is over, the story is done, and the world can wait. Good night. You wake to the scent of ash and early spring damp soil, thawing frost, something green thinking about sprouting. It's not quite warm yet, but the cold has softened around the edges, like butter left too long in the sun. The air coming through the gaps in the walls feels less like punishment, and more like invitation. It's planting time again. There's a kind of quiet urgency that descends on the village this time of year. No shouting, no ceremony, just the collective realization that everything you eat in the next 12 months depends on what you do in the next few weeks. No pressure. You lace your boots, stretch your arms, and head to the fields. This morning's task is turning the soil again. It feels familiar, like returning to a story you barely survived the first time. The earth is wet, clumpy, reluctant. You sink your shovel into it anyway, one heavy foot at a time. Instead, they held small strips under a manorial system with various dues and obligations attached. The term tenant didn't mean freedom. It meant complicated rules, shared oxen, and constantly negotiating with the steward who thought he was a king. There's comfort in the silence. Someone coughs. Someone sings. You hear a joke that's so old no one knows if it's still funny. He's wearing shoes that are too clean for someone who claims to understand farming. He nods, says something vague about duty and diligence, and disappears without lifting a finger. You and the others share a look that says everything without a word. Here is your historical planting fact. Most Tudor peasants didn't own the land they farmed. It's not finished, far from it, but it's enough for today. Enough for now. If they faced east, good weather. West, trouble. South meant wind, north meant don't even bother going outside. Today the cows face a wall, as if refusing to commit. You sit by the hearth and hold out your hands to the fire, which crackles in greeting. Tiny leaves like green promises. What they don't debate, the labor was unrelenting. The work shaped your life more than your dreams did. You work side by side with neighbors you've known your whole life and barely spoken to. At midday you share a rough cheese, some dark bread, and an apple so shriveled it looks like it's lived through something. It tastes better than expected. Maybe it's the few rows of turned soil stretching like hopeful lines of poetry toward the trees. Your brother builds a tiny fence for a tiny imaginary farm. You close your eyes for a moment. Your obscure Tudor tidbit. To predict the coming season, some villagers practiced weather divination by watching which direction cows faced in the morning. In the afternoon, the steward stops by to check progress. You finish your section just before dusk, hands sore, back aching, boots heavy with mud. On the walk home, you pass the same tree you always pass, and for the first time you notice its budding. Historians still debate how much agency peasants had in the planting process, whether they could choose what to grow, or if tradition and necessity dictated every decision. You notice it first thing lighter earlier, heavier with clouds that look like they're thinking of doing something dramatic, but haven't made up their mind. At home, your mother is stirring a pot of something that smells both familiar and new. A hint of garlic, a suggestion of hope. Your sister hums a tune from the wedding, half forgotten already. Clothes were scrubbed with paddles, beaten on stones and soaked in urine if things got truly desperate. Soap existed, but it was rough, expensive, and smelled like a mistake. Birds shout above your head with a confidence you don't feel. Your sister hums something tuneless, lost in the rhythm. The room is warm. Your feet hurt. But something about the day, the dirt, the buds, the shared silence stayed with you. But no one can remember if today's a saint's day or not. You glance nervously at the sky and hang your shirt anyway, daring the saints to care about laundry. You squint and keep working. You kneel on the bank, roll up your sleeves, and begin the long process of convincing fabric to be less offensive. You sweep the floor and discover a spoon that everyone insists belongs to no one. And when you lie down that night, you don't dream of cities or miracles. Your mother laughs as a sock tries to escape. You catch it mid-flight and earn a rare smile. But in your house, affection is shared through mended socks and shared chores and the gentle handing over of the larger portion of stew. You dream of cabbages, which is almost the same thing. The sky is changing again. Your task today is laundry. You think about saints, about seasons, about that one stubborn sock that keeps falling off the line. You don't ask. He doesn't explain. Yes, again, it never ends. In Tudor England, laundry is not a chore. It's a ritual, an ordeal, a full-body meditation on filth and forgiveness. You carry the bucket down to the stream, accompanied by your sister and the unmistakable smell of week-old linens. The stream is cold, shockingly so. Today's historical fact bubbles up with the froth. Tudor laundry was done using lye, ashes, and a healthy amount of violence. You scrub in silence for a while. The stream gurgles beside you, unconcerned. There's a breeze today. It steals a wet sleeve and slaps it back in your face, as if reminding you who's in charge. Here's your odd Tudor tidbit. It was widely believed that airing out clothes on holy days could invite divine disapproval, or worse, curses. Back home, you string the clothes along the line, watching as the wind turns them into strange, fluttering ghosts. The rest of the day unfolds slowly. You help gather kindling. You mend a chicken coop with questionable results. Your father returns from the Lord's field with a limp and a loaf of stale bread. He eats in silence, eyes far away. Historians still debate how connected Tudor families truly were emotionally, whether love was expressed through words or simply through acts of survival. The evening settles in, as it always does. The fire crackles, the wind hushes. The shirts on the line grow still. You lie in bed and trace the ceiling beams with your eyes. and you wonder not aloud but quietly inside what it would feel like to live somewhere with less mud. But then you pull the blanket up and turn toward the wall and let the warm heaviness of sleep draw you in, because tomorrow's coming, and it probably needs laundry again. The next day begins with the solemn, unmistakable thump of bad news. You hear it before you're fully awake, a knock on the door, slow and heavy, like someone trying to rattle loose your luck. Your father answers. A few murmured words. A long silence. Then the door shuts again with the softness of dread. Your neighbor has died. Not someone especially close, but close enough. The kind of person whose voice you could recognize through fog, whose cart always squeaked on the same note, who once gave you an apple just because they had two. You sit quietly for a moment, chewing on a piece of crust you forgot was in your hand. It is routine, woven tightly into the fabric of daily life. A few coins are passed quietly, wrapped in cloth, toward the cost of the shroud. Children learn early to recognize its signs. A cough that deepens, a hand that won't warm, a silence that stretches too long. Death in Tudor England is not theatrical. It doesn't involve speeches or hushed candlelight. You help carry the message to others. Doors open, heads nod, eyes close. So naturally, someone locks up the dog. It barks and howls anyway, convinced it's been left out of something important. Today's historical note. Burials in Tudor England were governed by the Church, and after the break with Rome, the rituals began to shift. The Book of Common Prayer, introduced under Edward VI in 1549, standardized how people were buried. Scripted prayers, no masses for the dead, no purgatory. It was cleaner, plainer, emptier perhaps. The body is laid out on a table in the neighbor's cottage, covered in a white sheet. You bring rosemary. It's traditional, and it helps with the smell. Others arrive with sprigs too, until the whole room feels like a small, sorrowful garden. Your mother pats your shoulder gently once. That's enough. Obscure tidbit of the day. It was believed that if a dog jumped over a corpse, the deceased's soul might not find peace. Likely both. What else can you do with grief but wear it like a cloak and keep walking? There will be a funeral tomorrow, but today is for watching. Not for entertainment, for mourning. Watching the dead was both practical and spiritual, ensuring no one was buried too soon, and honoring the passage from breath to silence. You sit with the others as candles flicker, your thoughts slow and hushed. Someone sings a psalm under their breath, slightly off-key. You watch it for a while, listening to the hush of the room, the weight of your own breath. Outside, life continues. A cart rattles past. A chicken argues with a duck. Smoke curls into the sky, like nothing has changed. You return home in the late afternoon, quieter than usual. Dinner is silent except for your brother chewing, like he's trying to solve a problem with his teeth. No one laughs. No one needs to. Historians still debate whether Tudor villagers experienced death with resignation or with private despair. Later that night, you light one of the candles you brought home from market. Grief doesn't stop the sun from rising, and the weather is, as usual, unimpressed by human affairs. Just one. Everyone wears their best, or what passes for it, clean tunics, brushed cloaks, a ribbon for the children. You dust the mud off your sleeves with the care of someone polishing old silver. A dog howls in response. Possibly the same one who was locked out yesterday. Possibly just in agreement. It burns low and steady beside the hearth, flickering against the beams. You don't cry, not tonight. Just the scrape of the shovel and the shifting of feet. You drop a sprig of rosemary onto the coffin. Others do too. It looks like someone is trying to start a hedge down there. So people chose their words carefully. Praise too loudly and you might provoke a haunting. Criticize and you could earn a spectral visitor with opinions. Best to keep things vague. Graves were reused regularly, sometimes officially, sometimes less so. Deep rest was a luxury. Not a feast, just enough to fill the pause. You sit with others and pass the cup, murmuring small stories like the time he rescued a goose from the well, or when he fell asleep mid-blessing at harvest. The stories are simple, but they hang in the air like warmth. But you feel something unnameable and old settle behind your ribs. And eventually, with your fingers curled into the blanket, you sleep. The same phrases he's spoken 100 times before pass through him like water. Someone starts singing softly, something half-remembered. You lean against the doorframe and breathe in the smell of earth and baking and rosemary. Dust to dust. Ashes to ashes. A collective exhale. Morning comes with color again. You feed the chickens, who are completely unbothered by death and interested only in grain. The trees are black silhouettes now, standing guard. The wind has calmed. Everything holds its breath. But in this moment, the ritual feels like enough. A path forward. A ladder made of habits. It always does. You wake early, pull on your boots, and prepare for the funeral. The church bell tolls once, then twice. It echoes down the narrow lane and bounces off the thatched rooftops. You walk with the others to the churchyard. Today's historical fact. Churchyards were often the only permitted burial grounds in Tudor villages, and they were usually overcrowded, muddy, and rich with bones from generations past. The priest reads from the Book of Common Prayer. He is serious, sonorous, slightly bored. There is no eulogy. No open mic. Here's your cultural curiosity. In some places it was believed the dead could hear everything said about them in the days after burial. After the burial, there's bread and ale at the cottage. Children chase each other in the yard. Then, just as naturally, the day moves on. There's work to do. Always. You help your mother scrub the table. You fix the broken stool again. You slip into the rhythm of the afternoon quiet, steady, full of small repetitions that gently nudge life forward. Historians still debate whether these rituals truly eased mourning or merely filled the time until the grief softened on its own. As the sun sets, you walk to the edge of the field, hands in your pockets, watching the last of the light stretch across the soil. You turn and walk back slowly. Tonight the candle burns again, and this time you let yourself cry, just a little. Then you let the tears dry where they fall and curl up in bed and drift, because tomorrow is already waiting. The storm passed during the night, leaving behind the scent of wet earth and a sky so blue it feels almost fictional. You wake to birds arguing outside, the kind of lively chatter that suggests someone dropped a crumb somewhere important. Your boots are dry for now. You stretch your back and marvel at the faint, creaking pain of being alive in Tudor England, where waking up is always a mild surprise. In Tudor times, weddings are as much community events as they are personal affairs. Everyone attends. Everyone judges. Everyone dances. The groom was 22, wearing a borrowed doublet and the stunned expression of someone who's still not sure how this happened. They stand outside the church under a sky so clear it seems rehearsed. Today, the village is buzzing. There's a wedding. Before that, a couple could technically be married just by saying, "I take thee," in front of witnesses, preferably not while drunk, though that certainly happened. The church formalized things later, but for much of this period, social recognition mattered more than paperwork. Not yours, don't worry. You're merely a spectator, part of the public fabric into which all private joy is tightly stitched. The bride is from the next village over. She's 16, beaming, slightly overwhelmed. You get a slice and nearly weep. It tastes like something rare and blessed, like a secret. This was supposed to bring luck or fertility or at the very least bruises in meaningful places. No one throws shoes today, but you hold yours a little tighter just in case. And here's your historical fact. In Tudor England, marriage wasn't a religious sacrament until the late 1500s. You're not married, you're not wealthy, but you're here in a world that for once feels like it's not trying to kill you. The couple walks slowly down the village path, followed by half the population, and at least one sheep, who simply refuses to leave. A large woman with powerful arms pulls you into a circle before you can protest, and soon you're spinning in time to a tune with no known beginning. Your feet move almost on instinct. You laugh. Not because it's funny, but because it's involuntary, like sneezing or falling into a river. You like the noise, the celebration, but from a safe distance, like enjoying warmth without touching the fire. Either way, you're grateful for it. Someone else sleeps under a bench with a blissful smile, but with more heart than skill. Children weave ribbons. Old men mutter about past weddings that were better. Old women mutter about future babies that are inevitable. You're handed a flower, you don't know why, maybe for luck, maybe to look festive, maybe because someone wants you to sneeze. There's music, of course, pipes and fiddles, played a little out of tune. You linger near the edge of the crowd, watching. There's food, too, a miracle. The wedding feast is modest but joyous. Bread, ale, roast fowl, and a sweet cake made with honey and apples. And now an obscure bit of wedding tradition. In some rural Tudor areas it was customary to throw old shoes at the bride and groom as they left the church. Dancing begins. It's not optional. The afternoon drifts by in a haze of music, shouting, and joy disguised as chaos. Someone drops a pie. Someone else proposes. You eventually find yourself sitting beside the church, breathing hard, watching the sun settle behind the trees. Historians still debate whether these communal celebrations were truly unifying, or simply well-timed distractions from the oppressive mechanics of daily life. The bride and groom disappear into their new shared cottage, trailed by giggles, whispered advice, and a goat with questionable timing. The music fades, the guests disperse. The night comes gently, full of softness and spent laughter. You walk home under stars again, the last of the cake still on your tongue, and the memory of dancing still in your bones. Tomorrow the fields will call, but tonight you sleep with a full stomach and the echo of joy. You wake to the rain, not a dramatic thundering downpour, just a steady drizzle that has clearly made itself at home. It taps on the thatch like it's politely insisting on entry, and the air inside the cottage feels cool and wet, like someone soaked the atmosphere and forgot to wring it out. Your first thought, the fire's gone out again. Your second, the roof is definitely leaking again. You slide out of bed, carefully stepping over your snoring brother, and locate the pot your mother keeps precisely for occasions like this, catching the endless drip that forms above the door every time the sky remembers how to cry. It's a rare moment of domestic suspension, nothing expected, no one to impress. You place the pot under the leak like a seasoned stagehand handling a prop, and listen to the slow, sonorous drip. Drip, drip. While women typically handled the hearth and textile work, men weren't strangers to child-rearing, food prep, or even spinning, especially in poorer households where survival outright social codes. In short, you did what you had to, or you didn't eat. Welcome to Tudor weather. Part-time mist, full-time inconvenience. No one is going anywhere this morning. That includes you. The fields are sodden, the paths are sludge, and your boots are already making soft sounds of protest. The alewife's moral fiber, in theory, seeped into the drink itself. If your ale turned out sour, people didn't blame temperature. They blamed your soul. You spend the downtime mending a broken stool with a piece of twine and a deeply misguided sense of optimism. It remains broken, but now it has character. No pressure. You eat it gratefully, sitting on the repaired stool, which sags under you like it's trying to escape. You imagine some poet, hunched under a leaky eave, penning sonnets about mud. Outside, the village is muted and still, puddles widening into small lakes. Chickens lurking under carts like wet feathery conspirators. It's sour, slightly gritty, but familiar. Comforting, in a medieval sort of way. You tend the hearth again, carefully arranging damp sticks and whispering mild threats until the flame reluctantly wakes. Because ale is not just a drink, it's hydration, nutrition, and low-level social lubricant. A living thing in a wooden cask. Through it, the world blurs into gentle watercolor, gray sky, darker trees, the occasional movement of someone darting between doorways with a sense of soggy urgency. You start by cleaning the barrels, scrubbing them with a bundle of dried herbs that smell faintly of lavender and regret. Your reward is heat and the gentle crackle of something finally going right. Today's historical fact slides in beside you like a sleepy cat. In Tudor England, domestic tasks weren't gender exclusive. And today you're making ale. Well, helping. Your mother leads the charge. Brewing is a vital chore, repeated almost weekly. Then come the malted grains, the boiling, the stirring. The whole cottage smells like toast and steam. Obscure Tudor cultural tidbit. It was believed that beer spoiled if a woman with a bad character brewed it. You try not to seem overly suspicious as your sister takes a turn at the stir. The process takes hours, broken up by bouts of stirring, cooling, and awkward waiting. Lunch is onion pottage again, but with a little leftover barley and something green that no one can name. Rain drums harder on the roof now, like it's auditioning for a moodier opera. You take a moment by the window, not really a window, but oiled parchment stretched across a frame. Historians still debate whether Tudor villagers romanticized the rain or simply tolerated it because there wasn't tea an alternative. The ale finishes boiling. You help carry it to the cool shelf in the back room where it'll ferment, change, grow stronger. The work is done, mostly. You settle near the fire, warm hands wrapped around a cup of yesterday's ale. You close your eyes. The rain hasn't stopped, but neither have you. You wake to the sound of someone chopping wood. Steady, rhythmic, slightly aggressive, like the tree insulted their grandmother. It's still dark, but lighter than night. Pre-dawn, You lie still, watching shadows move across the ceiling as the fire struggles to wake up in the hearth. Today, you're being sent to the manor. No, you're there to work a small levy of labor owed by your household to the local gentry, who own more land than they can walk across in a day, and fewer socks than you'd expect. Not as a guest, of course. The idea of a peasant visiting a lord is cute. Its chimneys belch comfortable smoke, and its windows actually have glass. Real glass. The kind that refracts light like a jewel. You've only seen it twice, and both times you tried not to stare, like it was rude to envy architecture. You dress quickly, pulling on your best shirt, still frayed, but only mildly shameful. Your mother hands you a dry crust for the road. You're re-met by a steward with a ledger and a frown carved into his forehead like it's permanent. You try to be grateful, but it feels like chewing a wooden shingle. It's not the first time, and it won't be the last. The manor house is about 2 miles away, perched like a smug cat on a hill. You're melancholy, too much yellow bile. Congratulations, you're angry and possibly cursed. This belief governed everything from medicine to dating choices. Romance, for example, was best pursued when your phlegm levels were stable. You eat it while sitting on a cold stone, staring at a statue of someone who probably invented entitlement. Probably a little of both. Envy is flexible. The bucket creaks. Your back creaks. The wind whistles as if amused by your efforts. You arrive with 3 others, Thomas the carter, who talks in half sentences, and Joan, and Peter, who had the uncanny ability to bicker silently. Sage, rosemary, and something that makes your nose tingle. A servant tends the garden with reverence, whispering to the leaves. You wonder what kind of life that is always touching softness, never soil. Your task, mucking out the dovecotes. You nod as if this is fine. They employed dozens of servants, some full-time, others like you, just borrowing time to pay rent or tax. The structure was rigid, hierarchical, and prone to drama. Think of it as a very muddy Downton Abbey, but with less brooding and more gout. You walk back through the woods, shoes squishing, fingers sticky with who knows what. Your brother is trying to balance a spoon on his nose. He's failing nobly. Dovecotes are lovely in theory. Small towers filled with fluttery, gentle birds. In practice, they are loud, smelly towers stuffed with angry pigeons, and they're many. Contributions. The loaf is warm, the room is warm. Still, pigeons are a delicacy up at the manor house. Their meat is tender, their droppings strangely useful as fertilizer, and their presence an undeniable flex. Only the rich breed birds just to watch them fly in circles. As you scrape, shovel, and dodge flapping wings, you try not to breathe too deeply, or think too hard, or look too closely at anything. Here's your historical marker for the day. Tudor households, particularly those of the wealthy, were many empires. Peter gets pooped on. He takes it personally. Joan snorts and offers him a pigeon feather. Thomas just shrugs. Lunchtime arrives in the form of a lukewarm pottage served by the manor cook's assistant. Your obscure cultural tidbit. Some Tudors believed that illnesses could be caused by emotions, specifically by the imbalance of bodily humors. Too much black bile? After the break, you haul water from the manor well. You pass the manor's herb garden neat, manicured, full of plants you only know as smells. Historians still debate whether manor servants envied peasants their freedom, or if peasants envied servants their proximity to bread and fire. By late afternoon, your shift is done. You're handed a small loaf and a thank you that sounds like a dismissal. Home is quieter tonight. Your father is asleep by the fire. Your mother is humming as she mends a hem. You wash your hands in the basin, dry them on your shirt, and take your place by the fire. Your eyes are heavy. Outside, the doves you mucked for flap noiselessly against the fading sky, and you, somehow, still find a reason to smile. You return home just as the sun leans westward, pouring long fingers of gold across the muddy track. Your boots squelch with every step, but your basket is lighter now, just candles and salt, nestled like sleeping kittens under a ragged cloth. Washing clothes is a full-body experience in Tudor England. Cold water, harsh lye, and the suspicious odor of sacrifice. You nod a greeting, place the basket near the door, and step inside. Everything hurts, but in a manageable, familiar way. Today was a success by Tudor standards. No injury, no arrest, and a handful of useful objects. You're practically gentry. Your mother is outside when you arrive, elbow deep in a bucket of laundry, scouring something unidentifiable with a flat wooden paddle and a look of permanent resolve. One finds the candles and squeals. The others look at the salt as if it might transform into a cake at any moment. You let them believe it. You swear it tastes like a feast. The candles aren't lit yet. You're saving them. Special occasions only. Or maybe a blackout. Again, the local lord is demanding more grain, more labor, more silence. No one in your family remembers when taxes were fair or reasonable, because those things do not exist here. You murmur appropriate noises, but your mind is elsewhere, floating, soft, dreaming of apples and music. 1,000 silent witnesses to everything you don't understand. The night air is cold, but it smells like mint and pine. Somewhere, an owl hoots with more drama than necessary. Then again, exhaustion and wonder aren't mutually exclusive. You felt both. You're feeling both now. Which is to say, any night when the wind howls too hard and your rushlight gives up on life. Your siblings swarm like locusts, poking at the basket, hoping for some hidden treasure. You sit by the hearth and stretch. Here's your obscure cultural tidbit. It was believed that bees could understand and share in human emotions. If someone in the household died, it was customary to inform the bees of the death, literally telling them aloud, lest they abandon their hive or stop producing honey in grief. So yes, somewhere out there, a Tudor widow is whispering funeral notices to a cluster of mildly offended insects. Time for a historical moment. Around this time, the Tudor population is growing steadily, awkwardly, and without much planning. The rural poor are swelling in numbers, thanks in part to enclosure, where common lands are being fenced off for private use, especially for sheep grazing. This means less land to farm, fewer places to forage, and more people wondering whether moss counts as food. Spoiler, not really. And now for something stranger. You stoke the fire. Dinner is the same stew as last night, slightly thicker, slightly more resigned. Your mother adds a pinch of the precious salt. Your father talks about taxes. Later, as night curls its fingers around the village, you walk outside, just for a moment. The stars are out. No smog, no glare, no cities in the distance, just stars. You close your eyes and breathe deeply. Historians still debate whether Tudor people felt the same kind of awe under the stars that we do now, or whether they were too tired to care. You go back inside, warm your hands by the hearth, and let your eyes close naturally. The straw mattress awaits. So does your sibling's elbow in your ribs. Sleep arrives not as a descent, but a gentle slide. You're dreaming. In your dream, you're in a marketplace, but it's entirely made of bread. The stalls are loaves. The coins are crumbs. The people are doughy and kind. A man offers you a sausage, and you reach out to take it, but just as your fingers close in, you wake up. Your youngest sibling is climbing over your stomach. Apparently he needs to find the chamber pot, and you are in the way. You groan. He mutters something half apology, half threat, and scurries off. You lie there a moment longer. It's early again, though not quite rooster o'clock. The sky outside is murky, tinged with blue. The plan is to trade a basket of eggs and a small bundle of herbs for something useful. Maybe salt, maybe fabric, maybe an orange if the gods are in a good mood. A fire is already crackling in the hearth, your mother again, always first up. She moves through the morning like a ghost with chores. You don't remember the last time she truly rested. And brighter, banners hang from wooden beams. A juggler is yelling about oranges. A woman is selling pie, and she is not subtle about it. You sit up and stretch. Your body sounds like someone stepping on a wicker chair. You pass a bookseller, a lace maker, and a man selling miraculous elixirs. She gives you 2 stubby candles and a smile. You hold them gently, like gifts from another realm. The town smells like humanity, sweat, tallow, cider, and adventure. They could ward off storms, protect against childbirth complications, or drive away rats. Whether any of these candles ever succeeded at multitasking remains, predictably, unclear. Today you're going to town. He squints at your eggs and gives you a small pouch of salt. Probably both. Probably neither. That's the beauty of history. It can be all things and nothing, depending on who's telling the tale. You nod solemnly like this is a great diplomatic success. You follow the main road, such as it is a rutted, puddled strip of mud with the occasional bone or boot lost in its depths. The trees lean over the path like sleepy elders. A cart passes, creaking and wheezing, drawn by a horse with one eye and no patience. It's market day, and you've been selected partly because you're old enough to manage coin, and partly because you still have both your shoes. You bundle yourself in your cloak and step outside. The air is sharp and alive. Birds are gossiping in the hedges. But its presence is a reminder order. In Tudor times was maintained less by paperwork and more by pain. Justice was visible, loud, and usually not fair. An old woman throws a turnip at him and calls it a blessing. You smile despite yourself. A thin mist clings to the ground like it is lost and too shy to ask for directions. The walk to town is about 3 miles, long enough for your boots to start complaining. Here is your official historical nugget. The rise of market towns in Tudor England marked a major shift in how rural people accessed goods. Weekly markets and seasonal fairs allowed country folk to trade surplus, meet buyers, and perhaps most importantly, hear news. Gossip, like bread, traveled best when wrapped in something warm and portable. As you reach the town gate, a man with a pike eyes your basket, nods, and lets you in. You step into noise. Voices shouting, pigs squealing, pots clanging. Everything is louder here. You move through the crowd, heart a little quick, eyes wide. You find the salt man, a large fellow with eyebrows like sleeping hedgehogs. A moment later you hand your herbs to a thin girl with a cart of candles. Here as your odd Tudor cultural tidbit. People believed that candles made on certain days like Candlemas had special properties. You linger in the square, just watching. Two minstrels begin to play. The tune is quick, uneven, slightly mournful. People sway. A boy tries to dance. You buy nothing else. You have nothing else. On the way out of town, you pass a public whipping post. It's empty today. Historians still debate whether punishments were meant to deter crime or simply to vent social frustration. You head back down the road. The candles knock softly together in your basket. The mist has lifted. The trees seem taller. And somehow you feel taller too. The sun is beginning to slip behind the tree line again, as if embarrassed by its brief, half-hearted performance today. You're still seated on the bucket, ale finished, apple core discarded into the long grass. You could go home. You should go home. But there is something quietly satisfying about sitting still after a day that asked everything of your limbs. You're not alone. Nearby, a boy chases a hoop with a stick again. You wonder if he's the same child from yesterday or simply part of a generational relay. Either way, the hoop is winning. Someone's baking something with cinnamon, or at least you choose to believe so. The scent is fleeting, almost mythological, but it stirs something in you like memory or hunger or both. The air is cooler now, edged with the smell of damp leaves and peat smoke. Back in the village square, there's commotion. A traveling preacher has appeared, standing on a wooden box with one foot dramatically planted, cloak flapping like an exclamation point. She rolls her eyes at the preacher, and you both enjoy a moment of silent mutual sarcasm. To protect you, others would say God bless you immediately, in hopes that your soul would zip right back in before the devil could snatch it. You sneeze once and someone nearby blesses you mid-sentence. It's automatic like a reflex. Words aren't always necessary. In Tudor England, companionship is often just standing near someone and not being a problem. He gathers his things and disappears into the tavern, where sin apparently pays better in coin. She's darning a sock for the 6th time. Fabric, after all, is precious. Every thread counts. Every hem is a tiny rebellion against decay. He denounces anyone wearing brightly dyed clothing, meaning anyone who's ever had a successful week at market. He warns that dance leads to sin, that women are too bold, and that the devil lives in ale. You watch your breath bloom in front of you. You watch from the edge, arms crossed, trying to decide whether this is spiritual awakening or free theater. The line was blurry then, still is. His voice cuts through the twilight like a blade. Fire, judgment, sin, and the ever-reliable repent. Henry VIII broke from the Catholic Church in the 1530s, not for theological reasons, but because the Pope wouldn't annul his marriage. So now you live in a land where the king is also head of the church. God is local now. He takes orders. Your father is sharpening a knife with the same expression he uses for prayer. You sit, stretch your legs toward the hearth, and exhale. He's sweating through his collar, which is unfortunate given the chill. People gather anyway, they always do. There's not much else to do, and public yelling is its own kind of entertainment. Your historical fact of the evening. The English Reformation is fully underway. The preacher rails against vanity and idleness, which feels a bit personal. You sip yours again, purely out of spite. Your friend Alice sidles up beside you, tucking her scarf under her chin. Obscure tidbit alert. There was a widespread belief during this time that sneezing expelled your soul from your body temporarily. Eventually, the preacher stops shouting. You walk back home. The moon is out again, and this time it's fuller, casting milky light over the village paths. It turns puddles into mirrors and stones into ghosts. When you get home, your mother is sewing by the firelight. Her stitches are slow, precise, patient. Your brother is asleep already. Historians still debate whether Tudor families were as emotionally close as their physical proximity might suggest, or if affection was more practical love expressed through soup, stitching, and survival. You lean your head against the wall. The fire crackles. Outside, an owl calls from the woods, and you begin to drift. You wake early again, not because you want to, but because the world insists on it. The rooster is at it as always. Somewhere a cow is mooing with bureaucratic determination. The sun isn't up yet, but the sky is pale like the underbelly of a fish. You stretch, blink, and consider pretending to be dead for a few more minutes. But no one has time for theatrics. The fire has gone out completely. You feel it immediately. The room is frigid, like someone dragged the North Sea indoors. You look at it like it's a royal pardon. You sniff it. You whisper to it. Then you bite into it like someone might take it away. You tiptoe across the stone floor, every step a small argument with your toes. His daughter hands you a bundle of reeds. You climb up beside him and begin the rhythmic, slow work of thatching. It's not glamorous. The peddler is back, arguing with the baker about the definition of fresh. But it's honest, and you can see the whole village from here. There's frost on the window slats, crystallized in delicate whorls. It would be pretty if your fingers didn't feel like wood. Over, under, pin, tuck. It's like basket weaving, only vertical and with higher stakes. The devil was always just behind you, waiting for sloppy seasoning. The mossy stone bridge barely wide enough for a cart. You pause, lower your hands, and make the sign of the cross. Your neighbor thanks you by handing over a small jug of ale and a baked apple. You close your eyes for a moment and breathe in the smell of hay smoke and cider. You sit on an upturned bucket and eat like royalty. The apple is warm, tart, and soft its flavor, oddly emotional. You don't remember the last time you had one. Even if you're not sure who it was, you feel the quiet shift in the air. Grief here is a communal thing, passed from hand to hand like bread. The crooked signpost that points confidently in all the wrong directions. The tree where someone once claimed to see the Virgin Mary in the bark. It still has a ribbon tied to it, though the vision now looks more like a startled duck. You rebuild the fire, slowly, methodically. Flint, tinder, breath. One such law, the 1563 Statute of Artificers, tried to control labor conditions by fixing wages and requiring workers to stay in the same job. It didn't work especially well, but it did mark a turning point, the first steps toward what we now call labor law. There's a satisfying crackle when it catches. The orange light spills across the room like hope. Today you're helping your neighbor thatch a roof. He's lost 2 slates in the last storm, and since proper tiles are a rich man's indulgence, you're using reeds, straw, and sheer determination. It's a full-day affair, and your reward will be a mug of weak ale and the lingering scent of wet grass. Before you go, your mother hands you a piece of cheese. This is astonishing. Cheese is a treasure. Time for a historical fact. During the reign of Elizabeth I, laws were passed that regulated wages and employment. As you walk to your neighbor's house, cheese still working its magic in your bloodstream, you pass familiar sights. At your neighbor's cottage, he's already up a ladder, swearing softly. Children are chasing chickens. Again, Marjorie is still mad at her bucket. And then there's the church bell. Slow, solemn, bong, bong. It's not Sunday, which means someone's died. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some Tudor villagers believed that if you spilled salt, you had to throw a pinch over your left shoulder to blind the devil. Not metaphorically. The wind picks up as you thatch. It pulls at your cloak and dances through the village like it owns the place. You grip the straw tighter and keep weaving. By midday, you descend the ladder with aching arms and scratches on your wrists. Historians still debate whether commoners in Tudor England were truly content with their lives, or if they simply had no concept of anything else and found meaning in the quiet, repetitive rituals of survival. You sip the ale slowly. The roof looks slightly better. The sun is out now, casting long shadows over the earth. The day isn't over, but you've earned your rest. Evening creeps in like a cat with cold feet, slow, soft, and inevitable. You can feel it in the air, and the low burn of smoke curling from chimneys, and in the quieting of the village. The children are called indoors, the animals herded into pens or under lean-tos. It's mostly root vegetables, which you pretend to enjoy. There's a bit of barley, a faint memory of meat, and a lot of hope. You wonder idly whether this is the kind of cough that ends with a funeral, or just the kind that keeps you humble. Your family eats slowly, methodically. Talking during meals is optional. Waste not, ever. A crust left behind might be dried for use in another meal. A bone might become broth. A spilled drop could earn you a glare and a remark about God watching. Talking too much might reveal just how thin the stew is. Somewhere someone strikes a flint to light a rushlight, a long, thin stalk of dried plant dipped in animal fat, flickering weakly like a candle that's questioning its career choices. Just firelight and the slow, steady yawn of night. You're inside now, sitting by the hearth. The stew is ready. Entire families slept in the same room, sometimes in the same bed. Privacy, as we understand it, did not exist. Your dreams were communal property. You dip a wooden spoon into the pot and lift it to your lips. Warm, bland, honest, a Tudor delicacy. The straw mattress crunches beneath you. You pull the wool blanket up to your chin. It smells of sheep and centuries. The fire is down to embers now, glowing like sleepy eyes. Your brother mumbles something in his sleep and then rolls away, taking more than his fair share of blanket with him. Typical. Your father clears his throat. A cough follows. It echoes in the small space, bouncing off timbers that haven't been dusted since they were saplings. And later Henry VIII were among the first attempts to codify the state's role in managing poverty. The idea was to distinguish the deserving poor from the idle poor, a cheerful early attempt at bureaucracy with added shame. As the meal ends, your mother sets aside the pot, saving whatever's left for tomorrow. Not when your feet are cold and your stomach is making decisions without you, but eventually your thoughts drift. Here's your historical anchor for the section: the Tudor Poor Laws, passed under Henry VII. Of course, in your case, poverty is not a theoretical category. It's a personal friend. You've named it. It sleeps next to the hearth. You sit back and stretch your legs. The floor is uneven. Always has been. The cottage settles around you like a large, tired dog. You listen to the sounds of domestic life. A spoon clinking on clay, someone coughing in the next room, wind curling around the corners like it's trying to peek in. Outside, the moon has risen pale and fuzzy, veiled behind clouds. It casts a pearly glow that makes everything look gently haunted. There is no electricity, of course. No clocks, no street lights, no blue light to scramble your circadian rhythm. Here's your obscure tidbit of the evening. In Tudor England, many households kept bedfellows, not necessarily spouses, just other people who shared the bed for warmth. You lie down beside your siblings, curled like commas in a sentence that's too long. Your eyes adjust to the dark. You can just make out the flicker of the hearthlight. You close your eyes. A dog barks in the distance. Maybe it's the Tanners. Maybe it's just announcing its existential dread. Hard to tell. Historians still debate whether Tudor villagers were genuinely accustomed to such cramped sleeping quarters, or whether they grumbled as much about it then as we would now, just with less poetic vocabulary. Sleep doesn't come fast, and with them you slip into the dense, earthy quiet of the Tudor night. The sun finally makes a guest appearance, low, reluctant, and entirely ineffective. It casts a weak light across the village, giving every surface a melancholy shimmer, like someone sprinkled depression across the landscape. Your fingers are numb, your back is sore, and you dislodged exactly 4 rocks and 3 earthworms in the name of agriculture. It's time for a break. You sit on a low stone wall, the one that separates your plot from Thomas the Carter's. It's dense enough to qualify as self-defense. You chew slowly, eyes fixed on a passing crow. The crow looks better fed than you. He is currently wrangling a cartwheel that's behaving more like a philosophical problem than an object. You exchange nods, no words, just the slow, mutual acknowledgement of people trapped in the same historical documentary. One of the many sprinkled throughout the Tudor calendar, no meat allowed, in theory. But as someone who rarely sees meat anyway, every day is Lent. The church calendar dominates everything. Feast days, saints' days, market days. He's one of the very few in the village who can read, write, and spell Wednesday without help. He's considered practically a wizard. This was not considered a metaphor. It was widely accepted that a hunk of cheddar after sunset might lead to demonic visitations. Whether or not this was a clever way to avoid sharing cheese is up for debate. Somewhere, someone has thrown onions and herbs into a pot and made the whole village jealous, and his wares dangle from belts and ropes, combs, knives, ribbons, a few suspicious bottles. You consider buying a wooden spoon you don't need, just for the novelty of commerce. The official coinage exists mostly in theory like dragons or an honest landlord. If you engage, she'll keep you there all afternoon, reciting every childbirth, scandal, and suspicious mole in the county. Her gift is stamina. Your younger brother is poking the hearth with a stick he refuses to part with, which means no privacy, no plumbing, and no chairs that don't squeak. You warm your hands by the fire and nod at your mother, who's mashing turnips like they insulted her. You trade eggs for cloth, labor for ale, and occasionally favors for silence. You have a fire, a stew, and a chance at another dawn. You begin the slow walk back toward home, the plow field left behind, like a bad memory. It is like a Google Calendar you didn't ask for and can't turn off. You smile. That's just the sound goats make. In your pocket is a crust of barley bread. This is a fast day. One major historical fact to cradle in your sleepy mind. By the mid-Tudor period, England had over 90 official feast days a year. That's 90 days when you were expected to rest, pray, and not do business, unless of course you did, quietly, and hoped God was looking the other way. There's no tick-tock here, only hoops, riddles, and sometimes dead frogs. You watch a group of children chasing a hoop with sticks, laughing like this is the height of entertainment. It is. In Tudor village life, that counts as a full conversation. Your neighbor Marjorie passes by with a bucket of water. It sloshes with attitude. She nods at you and says nothing. You nod back. Nearby, you hear the local parish clerk practicing his letters on a wax tablet. Obscure cultural tidbit incoming. In Tudor England, people believed that cheese could cause nightmares if eaten before bed. You stretch, your joints pop like castanets. It's midday now, and the air smells of stew. Along the way, you spot a traveling peddler. He's thin, wrapped in cloaks like a walking thrift store. You don't, of course. Money is a rare visitor in your life. Most things are traded, bartered, or owed. A local gossip waves from her doorway, and you pretend not to see her. You step back into your cottage. The air is warmer now, thick with the scent of onions and damp wool. This is domestic bliss, Tudor style. Historians still debate whether Tudor people truly found joy in such simplicity, or if we're romanticizing poverty to feel better about our rising grocery bills. Outside, the light begins to shift. Shadows stretch across the lane. Someone's goat screams like it just remembered mortality. Tomorrow might bring rain or taxes or another royal decree that changes everything for no reason. But tonight, not bad for a peasant. You wake to the sound of a rooster who doesn't believe in subtlety. He's been practicing his morning shriek since before sunrise, and you have no snooze button. You resharing your room with your 3 younger siblings and a draft that whispers gossip through the wooden slats in the wall. Welcome to Tudor England, somewhere around the year 1523. Give or take a plague year or two. Candlelight is precious and rare, so you squint through the slats and realize it's gray outside. Not quite day, not quite night. Just the color of wet stone. Your breath fogs in the air. This is normal. You sleep in your clothes because the house has no insulation, and fashion hasn't discovered comfort yet. Life is precarious, governed by the weather, harvests, and the king's latest whim. This week, Henry VIII is king. He's not quite rotund yet, but he's headed that way with gusto. Sheep bleat from somewhere behind a crooked fence. A neighbor coughs. That's John, who always coughs. Instantly, the cold finds your knees. It's early spring, which in Tudor England means still winter, but with birds. The mud clings to your ankles with a sense of entitlement. He's either been sick for 5 years or has a very persistent personality. The windows are made of oiled parchment, not glass, so everything has the warm blur of a low-budget dream sequence. Across the way, Marjorie is feeding chickens with a resigned expression, tossing handfuls of damp grain like she's reenacting a punishment. Infant mortality is brutally high, and infections are generous. Toothaches become death sentences. A stubbed toe can evolve into a full-body crisis. But here you are, breathing, walking, grumbling. Animals live close, often inside. There's a chicken that's decided your house is now hers. No one disagrees. The field is muddy and the plow is stubborn, and the ox is giving you side-eye, like you offended its ancestors. You dig, pull, brace. You are 17 and feel 47. Dirt, they reasoned, sealed the body from the bad air or miasma. So if you're wondering about the smell, yes, everyone's a bit musky. That's the idea. Feel free to close them. I'll still be here, gently mumbling through the centuries. It's the one solid structure in the village stone, looming, always cold inside. Or leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is. Is it night where you are? Are you under a blanket with a cup of tea, or under a thatched roof with a grumpy chicken? Services are mandatory, and God sees everything, including that time you stole Marjorie's egg. You'll deal with him later. There's a little ale left, thick and warm with yeasty residue. You drink it anyway. It's safer than water. Water, you see, is a lottery of dysentery, but ale is boiled and blessed by yeast dust, practically medicinal. You've heard tales of his opulence, gold, banquets, and wives like seasonal fashions. And whatever you can grow or catch. Meat, that's a Christmas miracle. Fish, allowed if you're near a stream and not above theft. You chew your jaw thinking about turnips. But here, in your hamlet of mossy timbers and squinting windows, kings are distant thunder. Your life is ruled by mud. Your only pair of shoes is waiting by the hearth, still damp from yesterday's trudge. You stretch beneath a scratchy wool blanket that smells faintly of last autumn's damp. Your mattress is a sack of straw, not metaphorically a literal sack. The room is dim. You've survived another night. It's a minor miracle. The Tudor period spans from 1485 to 1603, and for common folk like you, most days are just long sequences of making do, and your stomach. You're already thinking about breakfast, which might be yesterday's bread if it hasn't sprouted something new. Outside, the world is waking up with a kind of quiet resistance. You pull on your jerkin and step out the door. The houses around you lean like tired old men. Thatched roofs sag under the weight of past storms. You probably won't make it through this day. Statistically speaking, of course. A significant chunk of the population doesn't. That makes you lucky. The air smells of peat smoke, wet wood, and the unmistakable perfume of pig. As you make your way to the field, you pass the church. For now, you have work to do. You begin your morning labor with the kind of enthusiasm reserved for tasks like dental surgery and explaining taxes. The Tudor diet is mainly bread, pottage, and this is where we insert our fun. Obscure cultural tidbit. In Tudor England, people believed that bathing too often could make you sick. Historians still debate whether Tudor villagers were truly as filthy as often depicted, or whether our noses have simply grown more delicate over the centuries. Now, if you've made it this far, and your eyelids are already a little heavier, that's good. And if you're still awake, maybe gently nudge the like button with your 16th century finger, or subscribe. Either way, you're not alone. Now let's ease into tonight's journey. The ox snorts beside you. The sky is still gray. The earth is endless. And your day has only just begun.